Hi, Cinematic Enthuse here, and it's been a few weeks. Today is April 22nd, 2024, and I just want to go through some of the movies I've been watching, and maybe you can, see if you like them or not. And there's been a variety this past few weeks. I've tried to do some of the screwball comedies from the 30s and 40s, and then also I've been peppering in some 80s, 90s, 2000s movies. So let's get into it. So, The Richest Girl in the World, 1934. Miriam Hopkins, Joel McRae. If you're familiar with screwball comedy, you might know Miriam Hopkins from Design for Living by Ernst Lubitsch. And of course, she's been in other movies, but that's kind of where I know her from. And I can take her or leave her. I think she's got a lot of presence, but her and Joel McRae, who I love Joel McRae. He can pretty much, I'd probably watch him in a kind of genre movie that I don't like very much. Just that's how much I like him. I think he's very natural on screen. So these two together, though, are really great. The story is kind of it's it's okay. It's one of those, the girl's rich, so she has to get the guy to prove to her how much he loves her. So that gets kind of convoluted after a while, but only because when these two aren't on screen, it kind of fizzles. So if you can just stick with it the first 20 minutes, when I don't think Joel comes on screen till 20 minutes into the movie. And I was just like, okay, come on, can we move it along here? Uh, but once they get together, and it's a very exciting movie. You'll remember if you saw some of the videos previously, she was in a really good movie with him also called Woman Chases Man. And that's also on the links sheet that's at my link tree, www.linktree / cinematic enthuse. And you can always access all of these movies as long as the links are good. All right, so that's 1934. We're going to do a few more. I'm going to talk about a few more 30s and 40s movies and 50s movies. Boy Meets Girl. Boy Meets Girl is one of a few Jimmy Cagney comedies that I like. It's not as good as Jimmy the Gent or The Bride Came COD, in my opinion, but it's here's why it's worth watching. The first half is definitely worth watching. He and Pat O'Brien together are really fast talking screenwriters in the movie. That's what they play. And I remembered that they were supposed to be based on somebody famous. And it turns out they're based on Ben Hecht and Charles MacArthur. I don't know Charles MacArthur as well as Ben Hecht, but if you probably know Ben Hecht from Notorious. He was the screenwriter for Notorious, and of course, he wrote The Front Page, which is the basis for His Girl Friday. And Ben Hecht was a newspaper man too. So, what's really cool about their banter back and forth is really fast, and they're such a good pair together on screen. You kind of get a feel for maybe this is how screenwriters talked. I'm sure they didn't talk in real life like that, but you never know. Um, that was fun. Unfortunately, there's other people in the movie that aren't as interesting, like Marie Wilson. I've never heard of this woman. She's terrible. Ralph Bellamy is supposed to be Daryl Zanuck in the movie. Ralph Bellamy always does a good job, but it's kind of a bizarre character for him to play. The rest of the characters in the movie are just kind of flat compared to Cagney. Cagney just is always so vibrant and full of just energy. I mean, he's just it's like dynamite on screen or something. But so him and Pat O'Brien, I've seen them in a movie before together, and I can't remember the name of it, but they're pretty good together. So they could have made a whole series of those. So watch it, especially the first half. Man Who Came to Dinner, 1942. This is part of a April series that I was trying to do with both Stanley Donen and Betty Davis. It's Betty Davis's birthday in April, and I just wanted to showcase a couple of her comedies. She didn't make very many of them, but this was one of them. It's I know this is a famous play. It's Moss and Hart, and it's a good movie. But for some reason, I always like the first half better than the second half. Even though I'm a total Jimmy Durante fan, I love Jimmy Durante, and I know he's supposed to be playing Harpo Marx, and I enjoy seeing him show up for his bit. And I like Monty Woolley. I just think there's something with the ensemble that kind of it's going until the second half, and I don't know why. I can't figure it out, but it's still a very good movie. Lots of great people. Mary Wicks is in it. You'll know her from as the housekeeper from White Christmas, and she plays the nurse. Of course, Anne Sheridan. A lot of people know her. Um, she's kind of a beauty. I like Reginald Gardner. I He's one of these character actors who I can see him in anything too. He's great in this movie. He gets to play a really fun part. He gets to play, spoiler alert, a practical joke on uh, Monty Woolley and some other people. And of course, Monty Woolley's character is supposed to be based on Alexander Woollcott, the grand poobah of the 1920s round table um, that had Dorothy Parker. I can't think of the name of what the round table was, but you know what I'm talking about. It had Dorothy Parker in it, and um, several other writers who were also playwrights. And um, sorry, the name escapes me. But anyway, Alexander Woollcott was actually, I looked it up, and apparently he was that much of a jerk in real life too. Apparently, he was just a total jerk. So, yeah, what you're watching on screen is actually based on a little bit of real life. So, but it's based on an award-winning play, so totally watch it. Betty Davis, it's a different character for Betty Davis. What I will tell you is it's not your typical Betty Davis character that's very she's headstrong, but she's a little more subtle in this. So it's a completely 180 from Bride Came COD. Pardon My Past, 1946, Fred MacMurray, and I love him with William Demarest. And you guys know, that they were in My Three Sons in the 60s, but in the 40s, they made several, or at least a couple movies together. William Demarest was in a ton of movies, a ton of comedies, and Fred MacMurray made a lot of comedies too. But when they're together, they're just, it's no wonder they ended up doing a TV show 20 years later. This is just I think it's a great little movie. This is the second time I've seen it. And I really like it. It's one of these mistaken identity type movies. It's almost like a little reminiscent in a weird way of North by Northwest in terms of the guy gets mistaken for somebody who looks just like him. So it's that kind of what they call a trope. And I like these things. I think they're fun, these devices that get used a lot, but I enjoy them. So anyway, I would totally watch that one. It's really fun. It's got a very satisfying storyline, and everybody's great in it. Harry Davenport, he plays the grandfather. He popped up in, if you watch The Bride Came COD, he has a wonderful part in that. And he's also in this Pardon My Past movie. He's got some great lines in this movie. So, and he was kind of a veteran actor at that point anyway. He was slightly older than everybody else. So, yeah, he's really great too. So great movie. Totally, totally watch that. A new one to me called You Gotta Stay Happy, which I really liked a lot. This is 1948, You Gotta Stay Happy. It's Jimmy Stewart, Jimmy Stewart, and I almost said Claudette Colbert. Gosh, I'm sorry, I'm having brain farts today. I think it's Claudette Colbert, um, but for some reason I'm not remembering exactly who it is. No, it's not Claudette Colbert. It's Joan Fontaine. Joan Fontaine, who was maybe trying to be Claudette Colbert. um, I like Joan Fontaine a lot. I think she's a fabulous actress. She did a couple comedies, not many, but this was one of them. And she's very personable with Jimmy. Nice camaraderie. This is another case of somebody trying to pretend to be something they're not, and you'll kind of know that at the beginning of the movie. But it's also an adventure movie. It's one of these kind of like weekend in the life of, so you get to see the couple kind of transform over time in different environments. And there's an especially interesting kind of slice of life moment when they end up having to spend a night with this local family. It kind of reminds me of like a local travel kind of story where you get to experience the folk customs of that time. Like there's like square dancing and different things like that. And there's a few movies from the 40s that had like country square dancing, or not just square dancing, but like things that were kind of not considered uh urban. They were more done in the country, so to speak. So but it's an airplane. If you like airplane movies, it's a really cool kind of flying movie because he plays a pilot. If you like small business movies, it's a story of a small businessman. So that's fun. So those are always fun too. And I liked it a lot. The Birds and the Bees, 1956. That had George Gobel, who I only knew from Hollywood Squares of all places. I'd never seen him in a movie before. And I've become a fan of Mitzi Gaynor. And so, as you remember, the Lady Eve, which I may watch at some point, but I mean, I've seen it several times, but this Birds and the Bees is a 1956 remake of I can't remember what year it was, 1940 something. Preston Sturges, the Lady Eve with Barbara Stanwyck and Henry Fonda. So George Gobel plays the Henry Fonda part, and Mitzi Gaynor plays the Barbara Stanwyck part, which is and David Niven plays, I can't remember the guy in the original one. Anyway, he plays the older man in the remake, and he's great. David Niven can pretty much do no wrong, in my opinion. And Mitzi Gaynor is fabulous. I mean, if you've seen Mitzi Gaynor in other movies, she tends to, I guess she plays a variety of characters throughout her career, but I think in general, she tended to get cast as kind of like the ingenue or the kind of like girl next door type, or, you know, I mean, that's, this is definitely not that, right? This is more of like a femme fatale type, or at least a con artist type, if you know the story. So George Gobel, here's the thing. If I'm like comparing the Preston Sturges, the 1940 version to this version, it's tough. It's a tough call. I'd say in general, because Preston Sturges is a fabulous director, the first one is probably the better version. But here's the thing. I really liked Mitzi Gaynor as in the Barbara Stanwyck part. I think she did a really good job. I really liked David Niven. George Gobel, I thought was, here's the thing, because I don't really like Henry Fonda in that particular movie. I don't think he did as well as he could have. So for me, George Gobel was kind of nice to watch in this movie, in the remake. I got a little tired of George Gobel's approach towards the maybe last third of the movie, because he has kind of a bland sense of humor. It's funny, but it's very, and of course that character is supposed to be kind of a what we call a nerd, like a anthropologist who is obsessed with snakes and has been hanging out in, what is it, South America or something like that. And like I think those kinds of people are fascinating, but pop culture kind of plays them as kind of like, you know, nerdish. So it's worth seeing. Yeah. Yeah. You know, I always have mixed opinions about the Lady Eve anyway, because Barbara Stanwyck's so awesome in it. Henry Fonda is great with her, but he just, I don't know. I'll have to talk about that another date. Anyway, Wake Up and Live, 1937. It's not the best musical I've ever seen, but it's totally worth watching. Why? Because Jack, having another brain fart, the Tin Man, Jack Haley plays the lead character in Wake Up and Live. And he plays a guy who is a really good singer, but every time he gets near a mic, he gets very self conscious and has trouble singing. Like nothing comes out. And if you've ever performed, you don't even have to be a singer. I think if you've given a speech or, if you've done any kind of performance, I think everybody can identify with this. Like it's much easier when you don't know that something's being recorded, to do something, right? So this is a really fun, encouraging, it's a really good movie if you want to pick me up, and it's got some great songs in it. This is why I love these musicals from 30s and 40s and a few from the 50s. There's so many musicals that are even under the radar. They're not like part of the standard repertory that had great songs in them and really great singers. Maybe they're not the best story ever, but they've got really fun moments in them. Alice Faye is fabulous, not just as a singer in this, but she's also a really wonderful leading woman. And this is just a fun little story, and I highly recommend it. Indiscreet, 1958. You'll hear me talk about this probably more, but this is also a Stanley Donen movie, and part of April is Stanley Donen's birthday. And so I wanted to include another Stanley Donen movie. We'd already talked about Charade from 1963 that he directed, and On the Town, which is, of course, one of his collaborations with Gene Kelly. Sorry, George Kelly. Okay, I'm coming up with all sorts of names today. If I could fit in Singing in the Rain, I will. Otherwise, I'm sure I'll fit in Singing in the Rain at some point, because how can I not, right? But anyway, Indiscreet, I love this movie. And this is another movie where I love the first half a lot. I think getting to see, when that Cary Grant and Ingrid Bergman worked together on Notorious, and they were and they were great friends, and then you see them reunited in this movie, it's like you can really kind of see the chemistry, because it was kind of, even if they weren't romantically involved, it was almost better than that, because they were such good friends. So there's just such a lovely sense of respect that they did have for each other in real life, that I think really comes across on the screen. And there's lots of little moments that are really fun, like when he first comes over to pick her up for their first date, and he brings her yellow roses, and I think they're trying to make small talk. And I just remember there's moments where he's like fidgeting with, the roses, and he's like kind of stuttering around her a little bit on purpose. Obviously, he's trying to be kind of self-conscious, and she's kind of, apprehensive too. And those are real fine acting moments, in my opinion. And then of course it gets a little more involved, where there's there's this whole like scenario of he doesn't want to get married, and he tell anyway. It's it's it gets a little bit weird after the second half, in my opinion. But sorry, I don't mean to like color it like that. But there's a lot of stuff where I kind of wish they would have kept it a certain way and then not involved this other crap with it, because then it gets to be a little bit patriarchal and ugh. But it was 1958, and we have to remember those things. And so it's still worth watching, and it's beautiful music, gorgeous. There's even wonderful color schemes in her apartment. And of course, the clothes. If you're a clothes fanatic, you'll love all the wonderful ball gowns and everything. And the supporting cast is great. Phyllis Calvert and Cecil Parker, who, if you've seen, Cecil Parker is one of my favorites too, because he when he shows up, he's kind of like an Edward Everett Horton. You know, he makes everything funny. So totally, I love that movie. That's like for me, that's like a 4 star, either a 3.5 or a 4 star movie for, you know, for that one. So let's jump. This is a slightly longer video today. I'm going to see how far I can go, so bear with me. We're going to jump into the 80s, 90s, 2000s now. So give me a sec. Okay, so these are movies that I consider like, I guess other people would consider them kind of goofy, stupid, moronic. I don't know. Some of them are. Some of them are really legitimately, you know, well written, well acted, well directed. Okay, Trouble with Spies. Probably not the highest rated movie on the universe, and I loved it though. If you need a fun spy thriller and you're just looking for something that's kind of holds your attention for a while, I totally recommend this. And a lot of these are on YouTube. So, and that's part of the reason why I picked them. Donald Sutherland, I think, does a really great job with being really subtle and kind of, he's supposed to be kind of dumb in this movie. And that kind of reminded me of the storyline between the two people in the Inspector Clouseau movies, where, you know, the captain is always trying to kill Inspector Clouseau. It's a, you know, if you've seen the Pink Panther movies enough, you know, he's always trying to get rid of him. Well, he's trying to kill him basically. And, you know, Inspector Clouseau is supposed to be kind of dumb, right? You know, but for some reason he always kind of comes up with the culprit, right? And so it's got that kind of feel to it, and I think that that's what they were going for. But I like Donald Sutherland. I think he's great. I think the girl, I can't remember her last name, Lucy something. I think you'll recognize her from Top Secret. So if you like Top Secret, which is by the Zucker brothers who did Airplane, it's got kind of got that spoofy kind of feel, but it's a little more spy thriller ish, you know. But I liked it. I thought it was good, and I'd never seen it before. Several of these movies I've never seen before, so first time movies. Feds, 1988, with Mary Gross and Rebecca De Mornay. Loved it. I mean, how many comedies are there, female driven buddy comedies about two women in the FBI? I mean, I think maybe I can think of one other movie where there's a female cop. Well, okay, The Heat, I guess. Those are two. That's probably the other movie I can think of that has two female law officers, you know, one in the FBI and one's a cop. But I mean, that's two movies, you know? Like, I'm sure there's maybe a few more, but there can't be that many more. So this is kind of a unique situation. And it's really inspiring. I liked it. This is another movie I would put into the category of like, if you're feeling kind of like defeated, which let's face it, is easy to go to that place lately, or if you feel like you need a little pick me up, especially if you don't have to be a woman, you can just be an underrepresented group in society, which is, or maybe you just feel like you need a little confidence booster. This is a really nice story to watch, and it's got a lot of action in it. So if you need your action there, And it's got a little bit of that Police Academy vibe, but it's still got kind of a, these two women definitely need to prove themselves, you know, so there's a slight bit of seriousness to it, but not too much. It's still fun. Manhattan Murder Mystery is one of my favorite movies of Woody Allen's. So I watch it every once in a while. And so I thought I'd put it on here. That's 1992. If I had to name my absolute favorite Woody Allen comedy, this probably would be number one. I love this movie. I can't tell you how many times I've seen it. I'm not going to really tell you about it because I don't want to spoil it for you if you've never seen it, but you absolutely have to watch it. This is definitely in a screwball comedy, murder mystery, Nick and Nora. If you like The Thin Man, you should totally watch this movie. Great soundtrack, lots of 30s and 40s music. But it's set in 1992. So as are a lot of his movies, a lot of Woody Allen's movies are like that. They're set in the present day that they're shot, but he uses a lot of 30s and 40s music. And those are the movies I like of his. So um Diane Keaton's wonderful. He's funny. He's got some really great one-liners in it. There's one line I like. There's a couple lines I like a lot. There's one where he says, "Come and check this. Come and taste this tuna casserole and tell me if I put too much hot fudge in it." So there's a lot of good one-liner. If you like Groucho Marx, you know, he retorts with a lot of good one-liners. So and I think that's something that I've always liked about him when he kind of does his version of Groucho Marx. It's funny, you know. Alan Alda's in it. He's great. I'm trying to think. Oh, Angelica Houston has a really great part. A very young Zach Braff plays their son. You only see him for about 2 seconds, which was bizarre when I saw it. I was like, oh my God, that's Zach Braff. I didn't even know he was in it. And there's somebody else in it that's Joy Behar, and the husband of hers, I think his name's Ron Rifkin. He's funny too. Um, so yeah, totally watch this one. I don't want to give it away, so but totally watch this one, and it's on YouTube right now. These Old Broads, 2001. It's one of these. I think Carrie Fisher had something to do with producing this, so by that nature, I liked it a lot. I think it got a lot of crap. If you go online and look at the reviews, you'll see a lot of people panning it. Um, yeah, it's not the greatest movie in the world, but I don't think it's as bad as everyone thinks it is. In fact, if you like, I think it also is one of these things where if you like comedy and if you like musicals and if you like show tunes and show biz kind of tunes from that era, which is what these ladies grew up in, or at least the characters that they're based on are usually some version of themselves, either since Debbie Reynolds is in it, you know, there's usually, and obviously Carrie Fisher was, you know, her daughter. So there's some version of real life going on in here, but also a kind of like homage to um, a reunion of these three women, you know, being kind of reuniting and doing a tour together and all the different problems that come along with that, you know, and that part is funny. But there's also, if you don't really like musicals or if you don't really like show tunes, you're probably not going to like that part, you know. And so I think that's the reason why people didn't really like it very much because, you know, yeah, it's not like a drama and it's not a thriller. It's based on a comedy, probably, you know, a comedy type thing. The two other women are Shirley MacLaine and Joan Collins, who was fascinating to me. I had no idea she could, I don't know if that's her singing or not, but she certainly could move. You know, who knew Joan Collins could move? I didn't realize she could dance at all. So, but that's how it was back then. You had to be able to do at least two out of three, if not all three. And of course, you know, these women, when they made this movie, of course, Debbie Reynolds was probably older than the other two, than Shirley or Joan, but I think Debbie Reynolds, this was made in 2001. So she was maybe in her 60s or something. And she's moving around just great. I mean, stunt double or no stunt double, there's a couple numbers in there that are just amazing, you know. But most of it's the story about, you know, putting their show together and all the things that go wrong. And I liked it. I thought it was kind of fun, you know. Jonathan Silverman, I think, plays the son character. So you kind of get the impression that that's like maybe the voice of Carrie Fisher, maybe perhaps because she's playing, or I should say, he's playing the son of the Shirley MacLaine character. So I wonder if that's maybe a little bit, um, you know, based on Carrie Fisher, Debbie Reynolds. Um, 27 Dresses. I'm sure all of you have seen it. By the way, the link that I had for it was on YouTube and it's already gone now. So I think it's on Netflix until the end of April. If you have Netflix, that's fine. I'm sure there's another way to find it, but sorry about that. I thought it was going to be on YouTube for a long time. Because a lot of these free movies stay free for a while on the YouTube ones. So you don't have to worry about that with the other YouTube ones. To my knowledge, you should be able, and most of the links that I have on here, they'll probably be around for a while. Knock on wood. Anyway, 27 Dresses is the exception. It's, you know, unless you have Netflix, I'm not sure where to get it. But anyway, I like this film. And I really enjoy James Marsden in this movie. And if you've seen Enchanted, you'll know that he's got a great voice and he's got a great personality. It's even better in 27 Dresses because he plays a snarky newspaper man. There's all sorts of things that happen between him and Katherine Heigl, and I just think it's kind of a clever movie. It's got an interesting idea that she goes to all these weddings. I don't think that idea has really been talked about very much. I mean, if it has, let me know. I don't know. Um, so yeah, you should totally watch it. I wanted to bring in South Pacific because I consider myself somebody who loves musicals. I don't love all of them, but the ones I love dearly. And I've never seen South Pacific on film. I've never seen it on stage either. But what I have heard, because I have a background in opera and a little bit in musical theaters, I've heard almost all the songs my whole life. I mean, and I think pretty much everybody and their brother has heard the songs, and they're beautiful songs, of course. I didn't know about the song called You Have to Be Carefully Taught, which is about how we are not born racist people. You have to teach people how to be racist. And I think that is a very timely message. And considering it was written in 1949, it's interesting to me, and maybe not a coincidence, that out of all the songs in South Pacific, that's the one song that I had never heard before. Coincidence? I don't think so. There's a reason why some songs get buried under the radar. Because believe me, I've heard all of these songs in auditions, in reviews, you know, you name it. I just had never seen the South Pacific as a whole, you know, musical on stage or, you know, on film. So I really loved the music, of course, and I thought the movie was obviously wonderful. The thing that annoyed a lot of other people that I saw online, a lot of reviewers, was they didn't like the gel camera filters that people use, that the director used. I loved them. In fact, if I could think of one thing about the film that I loved the most, was the colored lights. If you've seen the film, you'll know what I'm talking about. The different kind of moods that are set through cinematography, through the use of that technology that was being used in 1958. which was like kind of a big deal at the time. And really, to be honest, when you watch this film with those colors, with the yellows and the greens and the blues, when they're singing, when she's singing, Juanita singing Bali High, and those beautiful greens and blues. I mean, it's like going to another state of consciousness. It's gorgeous. Or when Mitzi Gaynor is singing, and I think they tended to use a lot of yellows with hers, and it's just, I don't know, it really makes a difference to me. I was also really pleased by the acting level. You know, I think I had to kind of watch it in shifts because I didn't watch the whole thing in once, but because it's pretty, it's not exactly a lighthearted musical. But I really enjoyed it. I mean, well, the first half is definitely more lighthearted than the second half. Um, but it's still like, I think the atmosphere is can be duly noted. Like, well done from the director. His name is Joshua somebody, but I liked the decision to use those colored lights because they took the acting and made it more of an experience, I guess. So, I would give that at least 3.5, maybe. I don't remember if I gave it 4 stars. Doesn't matter how many stars. I'm just saying the stars just for the fun of it, but who cares, right? If you've stayed with me this far, thank you for hanging on. I'm going to try and finish this up in a few. I Sorry I have to put so many together here. Um, Bring It On, another favorite film. This is a fun little film, but this is another great film, like kind of like Feds. Um, Very girl power kind of movie. I don't know about the other Bring It Ons. I like the first one. Kirsten Dunst and Gabrielle Union. I think the fact that you have a you know Caucasian and African American kind of opposing each other, and then having kind of a rapport with each other, I think is really awesome. I think that's a neat theme to have. Of course, it's cheerleading, so what's fun about it is you get the feel of a musical where you get the dance and whatnot, but then you get also the sports kind of competitive, like, let's try and do something, let's live up to our reputation, let's make sure we're doing something original instead of just copying other people. These are themes that are really important, whether you're an athlete or a creative artist, or in a lot of areas. So I think it's good to watch. It's a kind of a good pump you up kind of movie, and it's a lot of fun. And I also like Eliza, is it Eliza Dushku? I think she plays the perfect kind of like snarky, you know, girl from out of town, and her brother is played by is it Jesse Bradford, and I don't think he made a lot of movies, but I thought he was really fun in this movie too. There's just a lot of great parts in it. Up the Creek, 1983. This is like if Animal House went river rafting. And I say that with great, you know, admiration, because I've never seen this movie until recently. It's the first time I've ever seen this, from 1983. It's got Tim Matheson, who was the lead in Animal House. And he's not playing the same character, but he kind of is, actually. Just, I don't think it's the same name, but it's that same kind of college thing where they get roped into basically doing a river rafting competition, and hilarity ensues, right? But what's really nice about it, in contrary to typical 80s fashion, and sometimes I don't mind it's too much, there's usually a lot of female objectification, not just the standard, like, hoopla stuff with women cavorting around, but what I liked about this movie is they let the women compete. So you're seeing women compete against the men, which for 1983, especially like this kind of movie, is pretty cool, you know? So take that into consideration. I think it's funny. It's definitely kind of what they call, I think Roger Ebert called it a undergrad slob movie. But he gave it thumbs up. He liked it. So I think he did. So yeah, you should totally, I watched it on a Saturday night and I had a great time. So My Chauffeur is one of these movies from 1986 that I've always wanted to see. I've never gotten around to seeing it. I can't remember her name. Deborah Foreman, I think is her name. And the reason I remembered that she made another big movie was she's the girl from Valley Girl, which I'll talk about in a second. But this is her, I think, a later movie of hers. Really fun, unusual, quirky character of hers. A very, very unique, and you will remember her character like way more than the Valley Girl character, in my opinion. This is where she has to go up against the guys. These are older men in this case, and it's kind of like a day in the life. It's got that day in the life uh, aspect to it, where you get to see her go through the ropes, and I loved it. I thought it was wonderful. It's very indie. If you like how like Desperately Seeking Susan, which will also be on the list at some point. You know how Desperately Seeking Susan is filmed in kind of this indie, independent film kind of way, and you feel like it can never be replicated because it's so unique. That's how this movie feels. My Chauffeur. And I'll segue into Valley Girl. Similar kind of feel in terms of very independent movie for the 80s. Great cast. One of my favorite Nicolas Cage movies. I love him in this. His character is so beautiful, so vulnerable, and I know he's playing kind of the typical teen angst kind of guy, but I think he does it in a way that's kind of unusual and fun. I think he's supposed to be punk, I guess compared to her Valley Girl. Uh, they used to call them because I was from this era, I guess they call them kind of yuppies or whatever, but they tended to wear kind of more conservative clothing and stuff like that. So it's really based on the clothing, really. Frederick Forrest and Colleen Camp are her parents, and they've got really great moments in this where they talk about their hippie days, and they run like a tofu shop or something like that, or a restaurant. Really great movie. Meatballs, the first one, you should totally watch it. I've never seen it. Can you believe this? I mean, I think I've seen it in the background at a party somewhere, but I don't remember seeing it all the way through. So I watched it all the way through. It's on YouTube, 1979, Bill Murray. Even if you just watch it for one scene, which is, you'll know the scene. It's when he gives a speech towards the latter third of the movie. And it's another example of a very inspirational, motivational kind of speech. So I guess I've been watching a lot of motivational movies. So I thought, why not share it with you guys? But yeah, I would totally, another kind of summer camp, summer fun, shenanigans kind of movie. Just One of the Guys, 1985, is supposed to be a cult classic. It's I like it. The premise is good. The rapport between the lead character, I don't remember the names of these two people very well, sorry. The lead character and her, I think her first name's Janet something, and her friend who knows about her cross-dressing so that she can compete. She's basically trying to, I think, get into, she's a writer, and she thinks that if she were a male, that her writing piece would have gotten a better grade or something. So I think in terms of like women feeling like they're not fairly graded in comparison to men, it's an interesting premise. It kind of lost me in the second half. I was kind of like bored, but who knows? Maybe I was tired. It's still a very unusual, storyline. I mean, I can't think of any other movie. Well, she's the man. I guess she's the man would be another case. It has been done. Actually, it has been done a couple times. Okay, fine. But not in the 80s. I don't think there was any other 80s ones where, you know, that happened. If there was, let me know. Girls Just Want to Have Fun. I don't think I've ever watched this all the way through. So this was another one I wanted to watch all the way through, and I enjoyed this very much. It's got like a very young Sarah Jessica Parker and a very young Helen Hunt, and they're just trying to get on a dance team. I don't know if you are or a dance show. In the 80s, there was and I remember doing this, there was a couple local dance shows, and I don't remember the names of them. This was a thing. Like people used to watch dance shows quite a bit, not just American Bandstand, which was national, but there was usually local ones that had like, because when I was in, used to live outside Philadelphia, you know, at least, well, I was really more like 10 or 11 when this was happening, but, and there was a local dance show there where like, it was really like you knew the people's names that were on the show. Um, they were really famous locally, you know, and everybody wanted to be on it. So I do remember that being a thing. And so that made it a little more fun for me to enjoy the movie because I remembered, you know, it being kind of a big deal back in the day. So this is a little bit later in time though. This is like 85. So whereas the memories I have are more like 1980, 81, maybe 82 or something like that. Um, so even though it's like well into MTV years, there was, I guess, still a few local or even national dance shows that people wanted to audition onto, and if you got onto them, you would, you know, maybe get noticed by somebody, and you know, maybe become a professional after that or whatever. I'm sure there was like income, you know, some kind of compensation too. So, but the whole movie is about them trying to get on this show. But it's fun. It's a lot of fun. Um, First Wives Club, I just wanted to watch it because it was on YouTube for free. Um, it's a chance to see these three actresses together, and I think they have really good rapport together. Bette Midler and Goldie Hawn and Diane Keaton, of course. And it's also a really neat idea of trying to eventually, after the revenge wears off, right? Of trying to help other women, you know. So, but I like the shenanigans that they get into because when they're trying to like help each other, and I think the theme of women helping each other, even if it's to do something that's maybe not such a great idea down the road, um, makes for a really fun movie. So, yeah, that's a good one. Summer Rental, I had never seen before. Can you believe that? I had never seen it. And that's actually on Hoopla. If you can get the Hoopla app connected to your local library, if you're not familiar with Hoopla, it's just an app that connects to your library basically. And it's totally free. And you can obviously check out books, but you can also watch movies. And Summer Rental with John Candy Hoopla was the only place I could find it. And it's only there for another week. I think it's leaving soon. That's from 1985, and that is totally worth watching. If you want another summer fun movie, I know it's April, but I just was in the mood for some summer fun movies. And it's directed by Carl Reiner. John Candy plays an air traffic controller who is just trying to get a nice vacation with his family. This is one of those kind of things go wrong movie, but at the end of the movie, it ends up working out really well. Reminds me also of One Crazy Summer in that it's got a regatta in it and there's a sailing competition. So if you like boats or if you like sailing or if you're just, you know, interested in that, it's totally worth watching. It's hilarious, of course. And, you know, added bonus, Rip Torn. I love Rip Torn. Rip Torn plays a kind of like pirate captain, you know, sea captain or whatever. And he teaches John Candy how to sail. And that's just awesome. So I would totally watch that. Uh, I just watched this yesterday for the first time in like 20 years or more. Small Time Crooks, another Woody Allen production from 2000, and that was on Peacock. So you can, if you have the Peacock app, which I'm pretty sure it's on the free version, you can totally watch that for free too. Um, that's got a great cast. It's Woody Allen, Tracy Ullman, and if you know Tracy Ullman, you know she's a master at accents. And of course, she's British, and she plays an amazing Bronx, New York accent. And she plays, Woody Allen's wife, and they're great together. I mean, even just the two of them by themselves would make the movie, but he adds a awesome cast with it. Hugh Grant, Michael Rappaport, um, uh, Elaine May is really funny. And, it's terrible. I love comedy, but I don't know much about Elaine May. And I'd say this is probably the first movie I've seen her in, because I know she was a great director and writer as well. Um, she was hilarious. She was so funny. So you should totally watch it for her. Elaine Stritch has a small part in it. Those of you who know Broadway, or you've seen her on Sondheim, that's where I've seen her. I've seen Elaine Stritch through like Sondheim, Broadway musicals, videos. There's a few other people I'm not thinking of, and I can't think of right now. But those are the main people, and they're fabulous, of course. And these characters are really, it says so on the cover. They're kind of thick in the head, but that makes for hilarious. They're small time, but they're, I mean, it's theft and fraud and things like that. So if you're into like, I think somebody said, I think I read this, that somebody thought that he might have based this on Larceny Inc., which some of you might know that as that's one of the screwball comedies from the classic era with Edward G. Robinson. And that's a really fun movie. I'll probably end up looking at that. It's the kind of premise where you have people doing crime in a kind of undisclosed location, or it's a hidden location, but they have a storefront, that's legitimate. And then stuff happens after that. Things go awry or whatever. And so the fun happens in, the interplay between the behind the scenes crime and the storefront, or the legitimate business. And this kind of takes it to a different level, though. It's not just about the criminal aspect. At the end of the movie, you'll find the characters kind of talking about their lives a little bit more intimately. And I don't want to give it away, except to say that you'll end the movie kind of in a different place than you were in the beginning. So it's not exactly the kind of movie that you think it's going to be by the end. Um, but that's, I like that about Woody Allen. So it's a great time. I had a lot of fun watching it. So I think almost all these movies were really great. There was only a couple where they kind of fizzled out the second half, but still. I'm not finished with it because I just started it last night and I had to like do something else. So, but I'm working on There's Always a Woman, which is a 1937 kind of murder mystery comedy. There's, within screwball comedy, there's also quite a few murder mysteries. Of course, of The Thin Man, but this is kind of like trying to take the Thin Man template and reproduce it with different actors and different character names, of course, and a slightly different situation, only that they're married. But this is Joan Blondell, and I love her so much. And I love Melvyn Douglas in a comedy. I mean, so putting them together for me is just like, oh my gosh, it's awesome. Even if it's not that great a movie, I'm already loving it. So I look forward to talking to you about that, maybe on the next video. In the meantime, you can always go to www.linktr.ee/cinematic enthuse, CINEMATICENTHUS. And I'm also trying to post to, of course, I'm going to post this to YouTube. You can always find me there and like and subscribe. I'm on Instagram at Cinematic Enthuse, and that Instagram is kind of my main hangout right now for this. So you can find out what I'm watching. You can watch it yourself. Click on the link, go to my link in bio, and get the movie link, watch it. And then by the time I do a video, you'll have already seen it, or, you know, or you can backtrack and just, watch them whenever you want and, refer to the video. All right. Looking forward to what comes up next. If you guys have any suggestions, you can always Instagram me, DM me, or put it in the comments or something. Say, what about this one? All right. Have a great week and weekend wherever you are, and looking forward to seeing you soon.